Ambassador Crick stood at the edge of the landing pad and watched the human ship come down through the purple clouds of Velar Prime. The tall, thin alien had seen many strange things in his 300 years of life. He had watched stars die. He had walked on frozen moons. He had spoken with beings made of pure light, but nothing could have prepared him for what stepped off that ship. The human called herself Captain Sarah Chen. She was short by galactic standards, barely reaching Crick's chest. Her dark hair was tied back, and she wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. None of this surprised Crick. He had studied humans. He knew what they looked like. What surprised him was the creature that walked beside her. It was covered in golden fur. It had 4 legs and a long tail that moved back and forth without stopping. Its tongue hung out of its mouth, and it looked at everything with bright, curious eyes. When it saw Crick, it pulled against the rope the human held and made a sound that was half bark, half whine. "What is that?" Crick asked. His translator made the words sound flat, but inside he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt wonder. Captain Chen smiled. "This is Max. He's a golden retriever, a dog. I hope it's okay that I brought him. The journey took 6 months and I couldn't leave him behind." Crick bent down slowly. The creature called Max pressed forward, sniffing at his robes. Then, without any warning, Max licked Crick's face with a warm, wet tongue. Crick fell backward in shock. His guards rushed forward, but Captain Chen was already pulling Max back. "I'm so sorry," she said. "Max no bad dog." But Max did not look sorry. His tail wagged even faster. He looked at Crick with what could only be described as pure joy. No judgment, no fear, just happiness at meeting someone new. Crick stood up slowly. His hearts were beating fast, both of them. It is quite all right," he said. "I was merely surprised. What did you call this creature, a dog?" "Yes, a dog. They've been our companions for thousands of years. Since before we had cities or writing or fire, dogs and humans grew up together." Crick could not stop staring at Max. The animal had sat down now, but his tail still swept the ground. His eyes never left Crick's face. "He likes you," Captain Chen said. She sounded surprised herself. "How can you tell?" "The way he's looking at you, the tail wagging. Dogs show their emotions very clearly. They don't hide anything." Crick felt something tight in his chest loosen. The Valorians were an ancient race. They had learned long ago to hide their feelings, to show nothing, to be perfect diplomats. But this creature, this dog, held nothing back. Everything Max felt was right there for anyone to see. "May I?" Crick paused. He did not know how to ask. "May I touch him?" Captain Chen's smile grew wider. "Of course, just hold out your hand first. Let him smell you." Crick extended one of his 4 arms. Max sniffed it carefully, then pushed his head against Crick's palm. The fur was softer than anything Crick had ever felt. He stroked Max's head, and the dog closed his eyes in clear pleasure. "Amazing," Crick whispered. "Truly amazing." The diplomatic meetings were supposed to be the important part of the visit. Humans and Valorians were discussing trade routes, technology exchanges, cultural programs. These were serious matters that would affect billions of lives. But everywhere Captain Chen went, it was Max who drew the attention. The other Valorian officials gathered around the dog during breaks. They asked questions about what dogs ate, how they lived, what they did. Max seemed happy to meet all of them. He let them pet him. He rolled on his back so they could scratch his belly. He brought them balls and sticks and waited with shaking excitement for them to throw them. "I do not understand," High Minister Errol said on the 3rd day. She was the oldest Valorian on the council, and her face showed the lines of 400 years. "This creature does no work. It produces nothing. It cannot speak or build or create. Why do humans value it so?" Captain Chen thought about how to answer. She was sitting in a garden, and Max was lying at her feet, chewing on a toy she had brought from Earth. "Dogs give us something we cannot make ourselves," she finally said. They give us unconditional love. Unconditional, Earl's forehead wrinkled. There are no conditions. None. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, successful or failing, good or bad at your job. Your dog will love you the same. Every day when I come home, Max acts like it's the best moment of his life, even if I was only gone for 5 minutes. Earl watched Max with new eyes. The dog had stopped chewing and was now watching a small bird that hopped across the garden stones. We Valorians form bonds through agreement, Earl said slowly. Through contracts and treaties and formal ceremonies. We choose our companions based on status, on benefit, on political gain. We do not. She stopped, searching for words. We do not have anything like this. Many species don't, Captain Chen said. Dogs are special. They evolved alongside us. They learned to read our faces, to understand our emotions. A dog can tell when you're sad even before you know it yourself. As if to prove her point, Max suddenly stood up and walked to Earl. He pressed his head against her leg and looked up at her with those golden eyes. The High Minister's expression changed. Her stern face softened. She reached down hesitantly and touched Max's ear. He knows, she said quietly. How does he know? Know what? That I am lonely. Earl's voice cracked. It was the most emotion any Valorian had shown in the entire visit. That I have been lonely for 200 years since my bond partner died. I have not let myself feel it. I have buried it deep. But this creature, this dog, he sees it. Max whined softly and pushed closer to Earl. His tail wagged gently, as if he knew this moment required softness. Captain Chen felt tears in her eyes. She had seen this before. Dogs had a way of finding the people who needed them most. They could sense pain that others missed, loneliness that others ignored. They offered comfort without asking for anything in return. Would you like to spend more time with him? Captain Chen asked. I have meetings this afternoon, and Max gets bored in my quarters. Earl looked up, her eyes were wet. Would that be acceptable? Max would love it, wouldn't you, boy? Max barked once and licked Earl's hand. His answer was clear. That afternoon, Ambassador Crix found High Minister Earl sitting in the garden with Max asleep in her lap. She was stroking his fur and humming an old Valorian song that Crix had not heard since childhood. It was a song about lost things being found again. He said nothing. He simply stood and watched and felt something change in his understanding of the universe. The humans had not just brought a trade proposal. They had brought something far more valuable. They had brought a friend. Word spread faster than anyone expected. In the age of faster-than-light communication, news traveled from one end of the galaxy to the other in hours. Within a week of Captain Chen's visit to Velar Prime, every species in the known universe had heard about dogs. The Zorvacs were a warrior race from the outer systems. They stood 8 feet tall and had 4 arms ending in sharp claws. They had conquered 12 worlds before joining the Galactic Council, and their reputation for violence was known everywhere. So when a Zorvac's cruiser requested permission to visit Earth, the human government was worried. General Marcus Webb met the Zorvac's commander at the landing site in Geneva. He had brought soldiers, weapons, and a team of diplomats ready to handle any conflict. He had not brought dogs. Commander Threx stepped off her ship and looked around with all 6 of her eyes. Her scales were deep red, the color of blood. Her teeth, when she spoke, were sharp enough to bite through metal. "We have come for dogs," she said. General Webb blinked. "I'm sorry." Dogs, the companion animals. We have seen the reports from Velar Prime. We have watched the recordings. We want dogs. Behind Commander Threx, her crew gathered. 12 Zorvacs warriors, each one massive and dangerous. They were all looking around with an expression Webb had never seen on a Zorvac's face before. They looked hopeful. You want dogs," Webb repeated. "Yes, our people have no such creatures. We have slaves. We have enemies. We have war beasts that fight beside us in battle. but we have nothing that looks at us the way those dogs looked at the Valorians. Threx's voice changed, becoming almost soft. Nothing that loves us. We want to know what that feels like. Webb did not know what to say. In 30 years of military service, he had faced invasions, rebellions, and first contact with a dozen species. This was new. Dogs are not. They're not something we can just give away, he said carefully. They're living beings. They have needs, feelings. They need care and attention and love. They're not weapons or tools. We understand. Threx stepped closer, and Webb had to force himself not to step back. We have studied. We have learned. A dog bonds with one person or one family. It becomes loyal for life. It protects. It comforts. It asks for nothing but food and shelter and affection. Yes, that's basically right. Threx made a sound that might have been a sigh. The Zorvax have fought for 10,000 years. We have conquered and destroyed and built empires on blood, but we have no one to come home to, no one who is happy to see us return from battle. Our mates choose us for strength. Our children fear us until they are strong enough to challenge us. She struggled with the word. There is no softness. One of the other Zorvax stepped forward. He was younger, his scales still bright orange. I saw the recording of the dog sleeping in the old one's lap. The Valorian, she was crying. But they were not sad tears. I have never seen tears that were not sad. Webb looked at these massive, terrifying aliens. He saw something he had not expected to see. He saw loneliness. He saw need. He saw beings who had everything except the one thing that mattered most. I'll have to make some calls, he said. This is way above my pay grade. The calls went all the way to the top. The president of Earth called an emergency session of the Global Council. Scientists, diplomats, ethicists, and dog breeders all gathered to discuss the question that no one had ever thought to ask before. Should humanity share its dogs with the galaxy? The debate lasted 3 days. Some argued that dogs belonged on Earth, that they were humanity's companions and no one else's. Others said that dogs had the right to choose their own bonds, and if they could bond with aliens, why stop them? Still others worried about the welfare of dogs sent to distant planets. Would they be treated well? Would they be safe? In the end, a woman named Dr. Lisa Parks stood up and spoke. She was a veterinarian who had spent 40 years studying the human-dog bond. Her hair was gray, and her hands shook slightly, but her voice was strong. I have watched dogs all my life, she said. I have seen them comfort dying children. I have seen them guide blind veterans through crowded streets. I have seen them sense seizures before they happen and save lives by barking warnings. Dogs do not care about borders or species or politics. They care about one thing: connection. She paused and looked around the room. If dogs can form bonds with aliens, if they can bring the same joy to other species that they bring to us, then we have no right to keep that gift for ourselves. Dogs are ambassadors of the soul. They teach us how to love better. Why would we deny that lesson to anyone? The vote was unanimous. Earth would share its dogs. The first dog sent off-world went to Velar Prime. 20 golden retrievers, 10 Labrador retrievers, 5 German shepherds, and 5 border collies. Each dog was carefully matched with a Valorian family based on lifestyle, temperament, and need. Each dog went with a human trainer who would stay for 6 months to help with the transition. High Minister Errol received the first dog personally. His name was Sonny, and he was the grandson of Max. He had the same golden fur, the same bright eyes, the same wagging tail. When he saw Errol, he ran to her and jumped up to lick her face. She caught him and held him close, and this time she did not try to hide her tears. "Thank you," she said to Captain Chen, who had returned for the ceremony. "Thank you for showing us what we were missing." "Thank the dogs," Chen said. "They're the ones doing the work." As news of the Valorian success spread, more requests came in. The warrior Zorvax sent a formal petition signed by their entire high command. The insectoid Clixar, who communicated through chemical signals, asked if dogs could understand their language of scent. The aquatic Melvari wanted to know if there were dogs that could swim. Earth's dog breeders worked overtime. Veterinarians developed training programs for alien handlers. Geneticists studied which breeds might adapt best to different environments. A new profession emerged: interspecies companion counselor. And through it all, the dogs did what dogs had always done. They loved, they played, they comforted, they made alien houses feel like homes. Commander Threx received her dog 6 months after that first meeting in Geneva. His name was Thor, and he was a massive Great Dane with a black coat and gentle eyes. He was nearly as tall as she was, which had been a specific request. The Zorvax did not want a dog they might accidentally step on. When Thor first arrived on the Zorvax homeworld, he showed no fear. He walked up to Commander Threx, sniffed her clawed hand, and then leaned his entire weight against her leg. Threx stood frozen. No one had ever leaned against her before. No one had ever trusted her enough to be that vulnerable. "What is he doing?" she asked the human trainer. "He's telling you that he's yours," the trainer said, "and that you're his." Thor looked up at Threx and wagged his tail slowly. His eyes held something she had never seen directed at her before: complete, total trust. Commander Threx, who had killed 100 enemies in single combat, who had led armies and destroyed worlds, sat down on the ground and wrapped all 4 of her arms around her dog. She held him for a long time, and when she finally let go, something in her had changed forever. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 years after the first dogs left Earth, Ambassador Crick stood before the Galactic Council. The Great Chamber held representatives from 200 species, each one watching from their designated platform. The room hummed with translation devices working overtime. "I bring a proposal," Crick said, his voice carrying to every corner. "From the planet Velar Prime, with support from 17 other worlds, we wish to establish the Companion Protocol." Murmurs filled the chamber. The Companion Protocol was something new, something that had never been tried before. It was not a trade agreement or a peace treaty or a military alliance. It was something much more simple and much more revolutionary. It was a guarantee that every species in the galaxy would have access to Earth dogs. "The benefits have been documented," Crix continued. He pressed a button, and holographic displays appeared showing data from a dozen planets. On Velar Prime, rates of what humans call depression have dropped by 43% since dogs arrived. Social isolation has decreased by 60%. Productivity in creative fields has increased by 28%. He changed the display. Now they saw images of the Zorvax homeworld. The warrior race of Zorvax has not launched a military campaign in 18 months. This is the longest peace in their recorded history. Their commander, when asked about this change, said simply, "I would rather stay home with my dog." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Even species that could not laugh made sounds of amusement. "But numbers tell only part of the story," Crix said. "The true value of companion animals cannot be measured. It is felt. It is experienced. It changes beings at the deepest level." He paused and looked around the room. "Many of you know that I was present when the first dog set foot on Velar Prime. His name was Max. He licked my face within seconds of meeting me. I was shocked, offended even. Such casual contact was unheard of in our culture." Crix's expression softened. "Max died last year. He was old for a dog, though young by our standards. I was with him at the end. He had bonded with High Minister Errol, but he remembered me. He always remembered me. When I visited, his tail would wag and he would bring me his favorite toy." The chamber had gone silent. Every being watched and listened. "I did not know I needed him," Crix said quietly. "I did not know there was an empty space in my life where a friend should be. But Max knew. Dogs always know. They find the lonely and the hurt and the lost, and they love them back to wholeness." He straightened. The companion protocol asks nothing complicated. We simply request that Earth continue to breed and train dogs, and that every species who wishes a companion be given one. We ask that standards of care be established and enforced. We ask that dogs be treated with the respect they deserve, as partners, not property. A voice called out from the Clixar delegation, translated through chemical signals and then into sound. And what do the humans ask in return? Crick smiled. It was a very human expression, one he had learned from watching Captain Chen. They ask nothing. I raised this question myself, and the human response was educational. They said that the love a dog gives cannot be bought or sold. It can only be shared. The Clixar representative made assent that translated as confusion. They want nothing, no payment, no trade advantage, no political favor. Nothing. They say that watching others discover the joy of dogs is payment enough. Silence fell again. For species used to negotiation, bargaining, and careful exchanges of value, this concept was almost impossible to understand. The humans were giving away something precious and asking nothing in return. Finally, the elder of the Melvari rose from their water tank. Their voice bubbled through the translator. Perhaps this is why the dogs chose them. Perhaps this is what the dogs have taught them, that some gifts are not for trade. Some gifts are given freely, and that is what makes them valuable. The vote passed without a single objection. The companion protocol became galactic law. Earth began the largest expansion of its dog breeding program in history. But dogs were not the only companion animals on Earth. Other species began to ask questions. What about cats? The Felinari ambassador asked. Her species had evolved from feline ancestors, and she had been fascinated by images of Earth cats. Or horses? Asked the Centauri, whose six-legged forms resembled Earth horses in some ways. Birds, small mammals, reptiles. The questions came from every direction. Earth's biologists formed a committee to study the question. Could other animals form the same bonds that dogs did? Could cats bring comfort to alien species? Could horses provide companionship to beings who had never ridden anything? The answer, they discovered, was complicated. Dogs were special. They had evolved specifically to understand and bond with humans. Their entire history was intertwined with humanity's history. No other Earth animal had quite the same ability to read emotions, to offer unconditional love, to become part of another species' family. But that did not mean other animals were useless. Cats, it turned out, were perfect for the Valorians. The cats did not demand attention the way dogs did. They were independent, mysterious, and elegant. They fit perfectly with Valorian culture. Within a year, cats were nearly as popular as dogs on Velar Prime. Horses bonded beautifully with the Centauri. The aliens could not ride them, of course, but they formed deep emotional connections based on mutual recognition of something familiar in each other. Centauri and horses ran together across open plains, and both species seemed happier for it. Even smaller animals found homes. Rabbits lived with species who communicated quietly. Parrots delighted beings who loved to talk. Hamsters and guinea pigs became popular with species whose children needed something small and gentle to care for. But dogs remained the most requested. Dogs spread to 40 planets in the first 5 years, then 80, then 150. Every ship that left Earth carried dogs. Every returning ship carried stories. Dr. Lisa Park, now 83 years old, received reports from across the galaxy. She read them every morning with tears in her eyes. A dog had saved a Clixar hive by barking when toxic gases leaked into their tunnel system. A dog had comforted a dying Zorvax warrior, staying by their side until the very end, then howling in grief when they passed. A dog had helped a young Valorian child overcome a fear of open spaces by walking beside them every day until the fear faded. A dog had learned to communicate with the telepathic Mindari, forming a bond so deep that the alien could feel the dog's emotions as their own. Every story was different. Every story was the same. Dogs found those who needed them and loved them without asking why. Dr. Park began writing a book about what she called the Great Bonding. She interviewed humans and aliens, dog owners and veterinarians, scientists and philosophers. Everyone had something to say about what dogs meant to them. "They make the universe smaller," one Zorvac said. "Before dogs, every species felt alone in the void. Now we share something. We share this love, this simple, pure love. It connects us. They remind us what matters," a Valorian philosopher wrote. "We build empires and write laws and fight wars. We think these things are important. Then a dog puts their head in our lap and looks at us with those eyes, and suddenly everything is simple again. Love, that is what matters, only love." "They are teachers," a human child said. "My dog taught me how to be kind, how to be patient, how to forgive. Dogs never hold grudges. Dogs never give up on you. I want to be like my dog when I grow up." Dr. Park included all of these in her book. When it was published, it was translated into 300 languages and distributed across the galaxy. It became the most widely read book in galactic history. Its title was simple: Why Dogs Matter. But even as the galaxy celebrated its new companions, trouble was brewing. Not everyone was happy about the changes dogs had brought. Not everyone believed that love was the answer. The Valdori had watched from the edges of known space. They were an ancient race, older even than the Valorians. They had survived by being cold, calculating, and completely without emotion. They considered feelings to be weaknesses, bonds to be chains, and love to be the greatest foolishness of all. And they saw what dogs were doing to the galaxy. They saw warriors laying down weapons. They saw enemies becoming friends. They saw ancient hatreds fading as beings discovered they all loved their dogs the same way. The Valdori did not like what they saw. The Valdori warship entered Earth's solar system without warning. It was massive, nearly the size of Earth's moon, and it carried enough weapons to destroy a planet. When it stopped near Mars, every government on Earth went on high alert. "This is Commander Vex of the Valdori Supremacy," the message said. "We do not come for war. We come to offer you a choice." General Webb stood in the command center of Earth's defense network. Beside him were representatives from every major nation, every military force, every space agency. They watched the enormous ship and tried not to show their fear. "What choice?" Webb asked. "Stop sending dogs to other species. Keep your companion animals to yourself. If you refuse, we will destroy you." The room erupted. Voices shouted questions, demands, protests. General Webb raised his hand for silence. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you care what we do with our dogs?" Commander Vex's face appeared on the main screen. He was tall and thin, with skin the color of pale ice. His eyes held no warmth, no emotion, no trace of anything that could be called feeling. "Your dogs are weapons," he said. "More dangerous than any bomb or missile. They weaken species. They make warriors soft. They turn enemies into friends. The galaxy was stable before dogs arrived. Now it changes. We do not like change." "That's insane," one of the diplomats said. "Dogs aren't weapons. They're just dogs." "Are they?" Vex's expression did not change. Before dogs, the Zorvacs were the greatest military threat in the galaxy. Now they spend their time playing fetch. Before dogs, the Valorians were cold and logical. Now they cry at sunsets. Before dogs, 100 species held 100 grudges. Now they share pictures of their pets and laugh together. He leaned forward. "Dogs are not weapons, you say, but they have done what no weapon could ever do. They have changed the nature of the galaxy itself. They have made beings care about each other. This is unacceptable." General Webb stared at the screen. You want us to stop sharing love with the universe because it's making the universe more peaceful. Yes. Webb laughed. He could not help it. The idea was so absurd, so perfectly ridiculous, that laughter was the only response. No, he said. No, we will not do that. Then you will be destroyed. Maybe, but you'll have to go through a lot more than just us. You'll have to go through every species that has ever loved a dog, every world where dogs have made a home, every being who has ever felt the joy of a wagging tail and a warm greeting. Webb smiled. Good luck with that. The Valdori ship did not attack immediately. Commander Vex was many things, but he was not stupid. He knew that destroying Earth would unite the galaxy against him. He needed a different approach. For 3 months, the Valdori ship remained in the solar system. It watched. It waited. It sent scouts to observe the planets where dogs lived. It gathered information. And what it found disturbed Commander Vex deeply. The dogs had changed everything. Species that had been enemies for millennia now traded freely because their leaders had met at a dog park. Wars that had seemed inevitable had been canceled because soldiers had discovered they both missed their dogs back home. Political alliances had formed based on nothing more than a shared love of a particular breed. The Valdori had expected weakness. What they found was something far more dangerous. They found unity. When the Valdori attacked the Zorvek's homeworld, they expected to find the former warriors unprepared. Instead, they found the Zorvak's fleet waiting for them. And standing beside the Zorvak's ships were Velorian cruisers, Klixar swarm carriers, Melvari water dreadnoughts, and vessels from 50 other species. Commander Threx stood on the bridge of her flagship with Thor at her side. The Great Dane was old now, his muzzle gray, but he still stood tall beside his person. "You thought we were weak," Threx said into the communication channel. "You thought love had made us soft. You were wrong." The Valdori fleet faced a combined force 10 times their number. Ships from species that had been at war for centuries now fought side by side. They did not fight for territory or resources or power. They fought because they all loved their dogs. "This is your only warning," Threx continued. "Leave this system. Leave every system where dogs live. Never return." Commander Vex's face appeared on the screen. "You would start a galactic war for animals, for pets." "We would start a galactic war for family," Threx said. "Dogs are not pets. They are not animals. They are our family, our friends, our hearts given form. If you threaten them, you threaten us all." Thor barked once, as if to emphasize the point. The Valdori fleet hesitated. Commander Vex calculated odds, possibilities, outcomes. He was a being of pure logic, and logic told him one thing very clearly. He could not win. "This is not over," he said, and his ship began to retreat. The rest of the Valdori fleet followed. Within an hour they were gone, fleeing into the dark spaces between stars. Cheers erupted across 100 worlds. Species celebrated together, sharing joy through communication channels that had once carried only threats. Dogs barked and wagged their tails, sensing the happiness of their people. Commander Threx sat down heavily in her chair. Thor immediately climbed into her lap, all 150 pounds of him. She did not complain. "We did it," she said. "We protected them." Thor licked her face and Threx laughed. It was still strange to her, laughing. The Zorvaks had not laughed before dogs. Now they laughed all the time. On Earth, General Webb received the news and let out a breath he had been holding for 3 months. Beside him, his own dog, a small beagle named Scout, wagged his tail hopefully. "Yes, buddy," Webb said. "We're okay, we're all okay." He picked up Scout and hugged him tight. The little dog squirmed with joy. Across the galaxy, a new holiday was declared. It would be celebrated on every planet where dogs lived, in every language, by every species. It was called Companion Day, and it honored the bond between beings and their dogs. But the true meaning of the day was something deeper. It was a reminder that in a universe of endless stars and infinite distance, connection was possible. That loneliness was not inevitable. That love could cross any boundary, bridge any gap, heal any wound. All because, millions of years ago, a wolf walked out of the darkness and sat beside a human fire. All because humans had looked at a wild animal and seen a friend. All because dogs had looked at humans and seen a family. The Valdori never returned. Some said they were planning new attacks. Others said they had fled to distant galaxies. But a few reports suggested something stranger. A Valdori scout ship had been found drifting near the border of known space. When rescuers boarded it, they found a single Valdori officer sitting alone in the cargo bay. Beside him was a small dog, a beagle mix with floppy ears and a tail that would not stop wagging. The officer refused to explain how he had gotten the dog. He refused to return to the Valdori supremacy. He asked only one thing, to be taken somewhere he could keep his new companion. He was taken to Earth, to a small farm in the countryside where he lived quietly for the rest of his days. He never spoke about his past. He never explained why he had left his people. But every morning he was seen walking across the green fields with his dog at his side, and every morning he was smiling. Love had found a way. Love always found a way. 50 years had passed since the first dogs left Earth. Ambassador Crix, now ancient even by Valorian standards, sat in his garden on a warm afternoon. His fur had turned white and his movements were slow, but his mind remained sharp. At his feet lay Sunny the Fourth, great-great-grandson of the original Sunny, who had come to Velar Prime with Captain Chen. The golden retriever was young and energetic, but he knew to be gentle with his elderly companion. A young Valorian approached. She was Crix's grandniece, a student of history, and she had come to ask questions about the old days. "Tell me again," she said, sitting down beside him. "Tell me about the first time you saw a dog." Crix smiled. It was Max. He was golden like Sunny here. He came down the landing ramp beside Captain Chen, and he was so alive, so present, so completely himself. I had never seen anything like it. "Were you afraid?" "No, not afraid. Confused, perhaps. We Valorians valued control, composure, dignity. Max had none of these things. He ran and jumped and licked faces without any concern for what was proper." Sunny lifted his head and licked Crix's hand, as if to demonstrate. "But then I understood," Crix continued. "I understood that what we called dignity was really just fear, fear of being rejected, fear of being vulnerable, fear of loving and losing. Max had no such fears. He loved completely without holding anything back, and he taught us that we could do the same." The young Valorian nodded slowly. She had grown up with dogs. She could not imagine a world without them, but she knew that such a world had existed not so long ago. "My teacher says the dogs changed everything," she said. "That before dogs the galaxy was cold and lonely and dangerous. Is that true?" Crix thought about the question. He thought about the Zorvax, once feared throughout the galaxy, now known for their loyalty and their protection of the innocent. He thought about the Clixar, whose hives had once been isolated and suspicious, now connected through shared love of their pets. He thought about 100 species who had found common ground for the first time because they all understood what it meant to come home to a wagging tail. "Yes," he said finally, "it is true, but the dogs did not change us by themselves. They showed us what we could be. We did the changing." "I don't understand." "The capacity for love was always inside us, all of us, every species in the galaxy. We had just forgotten how to reach it. Dogs remembered for us. They showed us the way back to ourselves." Sunny stood up and stretched, then walked to the young Valorian and put his head in her lap. She scratched behind his ears automatically, not even thinking about it. The gesture was so natural now, so ordinary, but once it had been revolutionary. "My friend from Earth sent me a message yesterday," the young one said. She says there are now dogs on every inhabited planet in the galaxy, every single one. Not surprising, dogs go where they are needed, and every being needs love. A communication device chimed. The young Valorian answered it and listened, her expression growing excited. "Uncle, the Earth Council is making an announcement. Something about a new expedition to the uncharted regions. They want to bring dogs to species we haven't met yet." Crix felt his heart's beat faster. Even after all these years, the idea of new beings discovering dogs for the first time filled him with joy. He remembered his own first meeting with Max, the shock and the wonder, and the beginning of something beautiful. "Help me up," he said. "I want to watch." The announcement was being broadcast across the galaxy. On screens everywhere, the image of a human woman appeared. She was old, in her 80s, with gray hair and kind eyes. Beside her sat a golden retriever that looked remarkably like Max had looked all those years ago. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen," the woman said. "Some of you may remember my grandmother, Captain Chen, who brought the first dogs to Velar Prime 50 years ago. Today, I am honored to announce the next great adventure." She reached down and scratched her dog's ears. "We have discovered new star systems beyond the borders of known space. We have detected signs of intelligent life, and we have decided to send an expedition to make first contact." The image changed to show a sleek spacecraft, larger than any that had come before. "This ship will carry diplomats, scientists, explorers, and artists from every species in the galaxy. But most importantly, it will carry dogs, many dogs, because we have learned that the best introduction we can give ourselves is not a weapon or a treasure or a treaty. It is a friend." Dr. Chen smiled, and her smile was so much like her grandmother's that Crix felt tears in his ancient eyes. "We don't know what we will find out there. We don't know if these new species will understand us or accept us or even want to meet us. But we know one thing for certain." She hugged her dog close. "If they have loneliness, we can offer companionship. If they have pain, we can offer comfort. If they have walls around their hearts, we can offer the key to open them. We can offer dogs." The broadcast ended and the galaxy went quiet. Then, slowly, the cheering began. It started on Earth and spread to Velar Prime, to the Zorvax homeworld, to the Klixar tunnels and the Melvari oceans, and every planet where dogs lived. Ambassador Crix stood in his garden and listened to the joy echoing across the stars. Sunny stood beside him, tail wagging, as if he understood that something wonderful was happening. "We did it," Crix whispered. "We really did it." He thought about all the beings who had been alone before dogs came. He thought about all the connections that had been made, all the walls that had fallen, all the love that had grown where only emptiness had been. And he thought about the future, new worlds, new species, new beings waiting out there in the dark, not knowing yet that a friend was coming. The galaxy had been cold and empty once. Now it was warm and full of life. Not because of technology or power or conquest, because of dogs. Because humans had looked at a wild wolf and seen potential. Because dogs had looked at strange alien beings and seen family. Because love, in the end, was the only thing that truly mattered. Crix sat down slowly, and Sunny immediately curled up at his feet. The old ambassador closed his eyes and smiled. Somewhere out there, among stars not yet mapped, new friends were waiting to be found. And Earth was sending dogs to find them. The universe, after all these years, was finally becoming home.